If you need any help, I'm gonna go chill back there with with everybody else so I can get a good view. Take notes and all that. Excuse me.
Okay. I think I met everybody. Hi, everybody. So let me get over here, not cast a shadow. Okay. So this is for the DMs, in case you hadn't already figured out. This is D&D. It's incredible, I know. If you somehow manage to get your way here without knowing this is about D&D, you're welcome. But, you know. So, I'm gonna assume you guys know what D&D is. You've either played, you've heard about it, whatever, okay? I assume that you are a DM or GM. You know what that's all about, roughly, okay? Or you want to become one. It's fair to say, right? Whoa, what is it doing? Is it scrolling when I move?
You might have an infinite scroll on. Try clicking the button that looks like it should be a DPI button, but isn't.
In the middle?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. And if you somehow manage to get your way here again without knowing what D&D is, there are much better entries, right? There's Critical Role, this guy right here. If you somehow don't know who he is, that's Matt Mercer. He runs Critical Role. Great show. I talk about that some more. I have stigma about Critical Role because there's a lot of perceptions that it instills about how to run D&D. Matthew Colville's another really good one. If you guys have heard of Matthew Colville, he's on YouTube. Basically, if I can recommend a single YouTuber that is excellent at teaching DMing, Matthew Colville's the guy, basically. He's fantastic, very chill, low standards, YouTube just in general. Okay, but in case you're here, we're not kicking you out. Okay, this is me. My name's Austin, I already said that. Handle up in the top right-hand corner. I've been kind of lurking around your server. But there's my ID code. If you want to get me on email, if you somehow don't have Discord, that's it. Okay. I'm a forever DM. So I've been DMing a really long time. I very rarely get to play as a character. I've played as a character maybe 6 times. I can almost say on one hand, I have played a really fun Lizard Folk Barbarian. I played with Caleb and briefly Isaac. These are 2 of my players right here. They're helping me out. Elmesi's the Magnificent, Tiefling Illusionists. Fun times. Never got to complete that one. Very sad. For 10 years. Long time. Some of you might be DMing longer. Absolutely. I have competition. We're going to get to that soon. I've DM'd perhaps 12 to 15 campaigns. Quite a few. I finished 5 in 10 years. To give you proportions, nothing wrong with not finishing a campaign. You're there for the fun. That's what this is all about. Okay, first campaign. This is the map of Winter Falls. That's Mara. This is what I use for most of my campaigns. This is about to celebrate the 10th anniversary. So I've been DMing this campaign since I was a DM baby. It started on absolutely awful grounds and it's become something I actually kind of enjoy DMing. And that's like this December? I can't remember. But yeah, this map is like the size of Australia. And finally, I have low standards. I'm still learning. I'm not that good. I get a lot of love from my players. I got a lot of them into D&D, so they don't know any better. But I'm still learning. I got a lot to learn. I'm certainly not as good as probably some of you are. I just have some experiences in this particular department. Okay. Yeah, this bulletin isn't working. Wacky. Okay, so it's a timeless game. This game's been around a really long time. Like super long. Twice as old as most of us has been alive. Came out 1974. That's the very original first edition that Gary Gygax made with some of his buddies. AD&D in 77. 77 is when most people got into it, right? That was first edition. AD&D, in case you didn't know, stands for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There's the player's handbook. You can tell why some people think it's satanic. Veterans have been playing for 48 years if you do the math. That's wacky to me. And to set up this little anecdote I have, I was invited to play AD&D with a 64-year-old dude. This guy, man, to give you scale, his gaming room had like this nice, beautiful oak table. He had an army of miniatures in the corner. He had a chandelier that you could lower, had like adjustable lighting for mood lighting, right? And the books were on top of the chandelier, like this little shelf that you could lower up and down just to deploy. And there was a projector. It was insane. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, and that continues. So basically, Original D&D was really weird. In case you never looked at the old books, a lot of people never try. 5e has been hugely beneficial to the community, mostly because of its simplicity. 5e is renowned for the advantage system, right? You just roll an extra d20, and that's like the majority of buffs and debuffs. You have disadvantage to advantage. AD&D, oh, can I do a thing? There we go. There was no overworld exploration. That was actually a supplement that came after. AD&D was, you start the game, you are at a dungeon, and then the entire session is just going into the dungeon and playing there. You level up by gold, no XP. So you kind of have that old stigma of D&D players being obsessed with money. Like somebody dies, they just scalp them for all he's worth. That's because gold was literally XP, okay? And the rules were examples. So the original books, they were writing rules with examples for which they had not written the rules for, which sounds weird, let me explain. So like if you look at the old grapple rules, they were using examples like this guy, if I can remember correctly, has a +2 to do this, and there's like 6 different examples that kind of explain one rule. And there's a lot of, this is why AD&D gets a lot of flack for being overcomplicated. Now we have a lot of simplified rulings that just make it so much nicer to play. Still extremely complicated, needlessly. There's so many things wrong with AD&D. They really simplified it over the years. Okay, so because there's only one dungeon in AD&D, and that's the entire game, and oftentimes the guides didn't even tell you that you could diversify and build more than one dungeon. A lot of original DMs just had one dungeon their entire careers. And people that stayed with AD&D for 64 years, every time they decided they wanted to add more to their campaign, they just added more rooms. So this guy had a dungeon that's 300 plus rooms big. And these aren't like cheap pre-made rooms. These are like detailed, like immaculate, beautiful, monster-filled, trap-filled, magic item-filled. Each room, back in the day, that was like one session. One session for one room. This guy was so streamlined, we did like 3 rooms. It was incredible. So basically, it was my first time playing. I was with a lot of veterans. I basically dragged the entire session down. I was like, what is happening? And I was super bogged down. I was distracted because of AD&D. At the very end of the session, though, all the pizza was gone. We had a great time. The DM asked the important question. Okay, this is the question to remember. He asked, did everyone have fun tonight? Okay? That's a question to remember. That's a question that should be asked sincerely. And you should let your players know you're asking it sincerely because this matters. Okay, this is a game. It was very, very fun. I had so much fun. It was like the funnest session I've ever had. So this is about the rule of fun, okay? I'm not the best DM ever, like I already said. I'm particularly inadept at rulings. I make up stuff all the time. I house rule everything. I have players that know way more than me about the rulings. New classes I look at maybe like 3 months after if one of my players plays them. So these are basically the points I have about having fun at the game. Okay, there's like 6 of them. The first one is having conversation about the fun, pretty straightforward. Talk about the fun, talk about the session, pre-session stuff. They're kind of fun. We talk about what the players enjoy, how to get in their heads, that kind of thing. You're kind of fun. It's important to have fun as a DM. If you're not having fun, there's problems. Yes is fun. That's a lot of people have heard that, okay? It's funner to say yes than no. It's cool to agree with your players, let them do the things they want to do. That was great. Straight to the fun. Going straight to the fun. DMD is a tailored experience. You are supposed to be able to go straight to the thing you want your players to enjoy. There shouldn't be any bogging. Remember the fun. It's a game. We're here to have fun. Remember the fun. Have fun. The words of Gary Gygax, it is the spirit of the game, not the letter of the rules, which is important. Cool image, by the way. Gary Gygax. Okay. Having a conversation about the fun. Try to get some fun-themed images here. Expectations, yours and theirs. Okay. So this kind of encompasses a lot of things we're going to be talking about here, but this is the most generic one, so I left it for first. So let me give you a fun anecdote. Okay. So one time I was invited to a session, very, very rare instance that I was able to be as a character. I was pumped. I had a friend who was like, hey, come on, gave me some of the rulings on how to roll. I thought he was the DM. Turns out he was not the DM. And we get to the session. It was a virtual session, which I highly recommend. It's a great experience. Not as good as in person, of course, but virtual sessions work, and they're often very convenient. let those schedules line up rather. And I got to the virtual table, and I found out maybe a half hour and we were late starting that it was not a voice chat D&D game. We were essentially playing the equivalent of Tabletop, old arcade game Rogue. Some of you might have heard of it. Entirely text-based in the chat. And the little bit of house ruling I was told about beforehand turned out to be a lot of house ruling. Okay, I had brought I had a very fun backstory for a human wizard, boasting what I thought was an extremely impactful 18 in intelligence. Never rolled an 18 before. I was like, oh, this is sick. This is 5e, by the way. I came to the table, the virtual table, with one guy, the guy who invited me was like a human fighter, very vanilla. And then there was 2 chaotic, evil young dragons, player characters, not even kidding. And they were playing as chaotic, evil young dragons, okay? Not half an hour into the session, they had enslaved both me and my fellow human, burnt the starting town to the ground, and has started this is Forgotten Realms, they have started their conquest of Winterfell, which I don't know how that would have gone. But yeah, it was disastrous, okay? Now, having a text-based game, that's kind of a fun idea, honestly. That's something I would think of. That's very like low commitment. But like, it would have been nice to know that beforehand, you know? All of this could have been avoided. Like, if they had told me that it was going to be a heavily house ruled session, if I had known there was going to be dragons, I could have played a dragon. That would have been sick. We could have all role-played chaotic evil dragons, joined forces, and taken over the Forgotten Realms. That would have been amazing. But because of that, lack of communication on the DM's part, lack of communication on the player's part, it was very unfun for everybody, including the DM. I don't believe she DM'd again. And that was her first session. It stunk. So expectations, big deal. Figure those out, house rules, all that stuff. Okay, discuss tone or else. Another expectation. Tone is, okay, let me give you an example. Basically, your players think they are signing up for a PG-13 adventure, very lighthearted, fun times, maybe some character death, but you know, maybe they can be resurrected. You want to play TV mature, Game of Thrones style, awful stuff. Nothing wrong with that, just have your expectations in order because that is the stuff of horror stories. People walking away from the table, friendships ending, that kind of thing. Figure out what your tone is, decide on it. Err on the side of conservatism, nothing wrong with that. Make sure everybody's having fun, okay? Talk about your setting. And this applies to all this stuff applies to more than just D&D. This can be Pathfinder, sci-fi setting, whatever. Talk about your setting. This could be a space station. This could be the Forgotten Realms. This could be a custom D&D setting, whatever. The more you tell them about the setting, like a setting primer, like can just be like a paragraph. Doesn't have to be much. That does a world of good. That gives them all kinds of ideas on what kind of characters they need to build, what they should expect when they come to the table. My setting has no gunpowder, or very little. The dwarves have it, and they sell it at a premium. So basically, if you want to conquer the world, you go to the dwarves, you conquer them, and or make a huge bargain and take all their gunpowder, make a big fleet. Yeah, talk about your setting. Figure out what you want. No gunslingers in my setting for the most part. Ask what they think is fun. This seems highly intuitive, but you'd be surprised how often this question gets overlooked. And this doesn't just mean what do you find fun in D&D. This is what do you find fun in general. This is a great primer question. I had a number of new players. Like the first question I asked is, okay, you never played D&D. Have you played such RPGs as Skyrim? Like, oh yeah, Skyrim. I played modded Skyrim. I'm like, oh, awesome. I love modded Skyrim. There's dragons in this. It's like an open world, but there are literally no walls. There's no boundaries, and that blew their mind. They're like, wait, I can go anywhere. I can do anything. That didn't compute until they got in there. We talk about that later. But so ask what they think is fun. It can be anything that can give you an idea, at least an inkling as to what they think is fun. Oftentimes, they'll say they think something is fun. That might give you a wrong impression. A lot of times, people don't know what they find fun until they play D&D. And that can vary wildly from what they normally enjoy. Okay, I know I had one girl who was like the gentlest, sweetest thing ever before the table, and she was a total psychopath murder hobo once we got on the table. So, you know, just you learn by experience. We talk about that some later. Try to find common ground. I'll reference this anecdote later. I had one campaign which was one of the most memorable campaigns ever called Grail Gets You Gold. Grail Gets You Gold sounds like a slogan that you would see on a billboard because it was. Grail Gets You Gold was a campaign of lawyers, literal law students, and they talked beforehand about what they thought would be fun in the game. It was briefly mentioned that, dude, you're playing a lawyer. We know law. So basically, let's try to practice law in D&D. And I'm like, dude, that's an interesting idea. It wasn't until we got into the game that I was able to say yes a few times and set them up with something like that.
Sorry about that. Somebody just joined the VC unmuted, so.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, let me reset this. What point were we on? Boom. By the way, because we have such a small audience, if you have questions, just hit me. Okay, we have a Q&A at the end. We're gonna get to that probably sooner than we expect, so if you wanna hit me now, not a problem, okay? Okay, try to find common ground. Try to find themes between your characters, your players. Anything you can find that will synergize, be fun for everybody. I had a bunch of people who really enjoyed fighting. They wanted to just be fighting all the time, every session. I was like, ooh, I could do like a gladiatorial style campaign setting with like a small overarching story. That's fun. Okay, big one. Okay, I know you don't have many friends. We're D&D players. But you still need to be understanding. Understand if it isn't for them, okay? This is a huge one. Don't drag them to the table. That's like, it seems intuitive, but so often we peer pressure our friends, our people into coming to the table when they don't really want to. It's not really for them. They would prefer a different setting, different DM. No harm in that. Don't pressure them. If they want to come, they'll come. Yeah, so just get that, I guess. Okay. Oh yeah, and don't be afraid to turn away incompatible players. That's the other side of the coin. So conversely, accept that they don't want to play. You need to figure out if you don't want to play with them, okay? It's not gonna be fun if you don't want to play with them. You're the DM, you can decide this, okay? It's not a bad thing to turn somebody away. If you think they're not gonna mesh well with another player, if you think you're not gonna enjoy their style, their way of doing things, I have several players that I wish I never played with. Nothing wrong with that. I don't really begrudge them as people. I think they're fine people. I don't really like the way they play D&D. So, yeah, don't be afraid to turn away people. Okay, moving on to the second big point. They're kind of fun. I got this image because it felt like something my players would enjoy. This is definitely the kind of thing they would make in their downtime, just this massive, monstrous walking tank mech. So your job is to figure out your players. That's your primary job. Your first job is to have fun. Your second job is to figure out your players, because that is like the big source of having fun, is understanding your players, feeding them what they want, mixing with what you want, and it's a cooperative storytelling experience. That is D&D in every other tabletop game, okay? So figure out what they have fun doing, and the next few points are gonna be all about figuring that out. I'm gonna go over the profiles. Sometimes new or inexperienced players have no idea what they want, okay? I talked about this earlier. Again, the concept that when you get into the table, especially people who are new to tabletop games, they don't know what they want. So it's good in the first session, especially the first session, to throw in just a hodgepodge of all the cool things about D&D, okay? This is gonna be a difficult concept sometimes, because I don't know about you, but I hate certain things about prepping sessions. I hate combat. I hate trying to do logistics. I hate keeping track of things. I hate making new things like magic items. All the things of that nature I do are extremely bare bones, simple. I tell people that beforehand. That goes into expectations. But they come into my campaign, they expect roleplay, they expect story, they expect interesting character moments for the most part, lots of roleplay. Okay, yes. First session, I talked about it a little bit already. It almost never goes how you expect, okay? We get into that in a second, but there's so many weird personalities, preferences, motives for playing D&D, misconceptions about the setting, misconceptions about what D&D is, that your first session is almost always chaotic, or at least it doesn't go as you expect. What I do for my first session is basically make a little outline of what I plan to do. I have a couple of encounters ready. And I tell my players the first session is gonna be pretty bare bones, and then I just go, and I figure out what they want the first session, or at least I try to, at least to get an idea, and we go from there, okay? Nothing wrong with having a bare bones first session. So the first session I ever DM'd, this was not Winter Falls, my first campaign. This was like a little one-shot I did just to see if I'd enjoy it. I made a beautiful town. I had a fantastic, I had a blacksmith with like literal like 4 or 5 paragraphs worth of backstory. He was a war hero who like had this excellent like plot hook into a legendary sword that he wanted to craft. He needs materials for it. And just like most of you probably expect, they took one look at the town, decided that mountain looked way cooler. They went there. They never came back to that town. I've reused that town several times. Remember to reuse content whenever possible. Also recycle, steal, plagiarize, all that stuff. We're all DMs, we get it. But, you know, so yeah, just, you know, consider that when making your stuff for the first time. You don't know what you're getting into. Yeah, that's what I just mentioned. So these are the player profiles. So to those of you who aren't aware, I think it's like page 6 of the 5e manual for the DMs. There is a list of player profiles that I'm listing right here. So this isn't like every DM manual ever, I think. At least 3 or 4 editions back, probably Pathfinder too. They're always like different titles, 5es, all these, pretty neutral. They used to use the classes for these. I thought that was more flavorful. But looking at these, you might have an idea, having played D&D, assumably, of what you are. Usually you're not one, you're usually several. Like any psychological profile, this is pretty much a mix and match. You have preferences, but experienced D&D players often enjoy all of these things. You just have like one thing you like more. If I had to say, I'm probably an actor storyteller with some problem solver in me. Isaac, we talk about him later. He is the instigator. He is the biggest instigator I've ever had. Last session, he basically single-handedly separated the entire party, spawned a one-off with him solo, got them in the Feywild to escape basically human supremacists, and there's like a dinosaur running around, I think, somewhere. But yeah, instigator, he's the biggest instigator I've ever had. Caleb, if you ever played with Caleb, Caleb's a bit of a problem solver, fighter. Yeah. Maybe some actor. Some of his roleplay is pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, so kind of get an idea of what you know, what your players enjoy, what you enjoy. Use these. These are great. Okay, and we're gonna talk about each one a little bit more. I'm gonna give you recommendations on them. This is Elnestes. I'm very fond of. The actor. So this is a player who likes to act. He likes to roleplay. He likes all the things roleplay. He likes roleplay moments. He likes unique roleplay moments. Okay. So you want to involve, well, I'll give you recommendations in a second, but basically, let me give you the premise of it. Okay, it's not just role play, it is collective role play. They will do something that will spawn role play for other people, and they enjoy that too. Basically, kind of living, what is the word, vicariously through other people's role play. They enjoy all the role play collectively, but they enjoy kind of starting it. A lot of the actors I have start these moments. I enjoy doing that. I have NPCs that come in, ask interesting questions, moral dilemmas, that kind of thing. I like those kinds of moments. Bottom line, this is everyone on Critical Role, period. Okay, like Travis Willingham, if you know him. Travis is like a fighter actor. Sam Riegel is like a instigator actor, okay? So they're all actors, they just have other preferences. And that's kind of what the diversity in the campaign comes from. They're all top-notch actors. And all of them, that may have been learned, but they probably have those preferences as well, but like all of them attended school for acting. They're all actors at heart. So this is a lot of the misconceptions people, because they watch Critical Role first. That's like the biggest gateway ever. And then they're like, wow, this is incredible. We're gonna have these amazing role play moments. Oftentimes there's like one actor maybe in the entire party, and the role play is really stiff with new players, okay? So don't expect this. It's a horrible misconception. I'll talk about the Matt Mercer effect later maybe. And you should live up to Matt Mercer is the bottom line. But
Allison,
yes.
can you try and face the mic a little bit more?
Apologies. Hello.
If nothing else, just don't put your back to it.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Critical Role. Please. There we go. I recommend stuff for the actor. Okay, let me read this a little. So I recommend unique NPCs that are essentially actor foils. Okay. So it could be a character from their backstory. It could be some interesting NPC that you think would just be interesting. I had a random wizard who I felt that he didn't have a buddy to wizard with. He was just surrounded by fighters and barbarians. I think there's a druid in there somewhere. And it never felt like he was able to do anything magical. So I gave him a magic buddy who just talked magic with him for like half a session. And like they started like uncovering magical artifacts, and they're like going on a mission for that. So that's great. Make a foil for them. If they have a foil in the party, that's wonderful. Encourage that in character creation. Brother-sister dynamics, they work for a reason. They bounce off each other like that, right? Inspire emotions is the biggest thing, okay? Do anything that will get a reaction out of your actors, any of your players in general. Make them angry, make them sad. Anything that works, make them feel awkward. Do weird stuff to your players and just let them roll with it, because actors love that stuff. Unique social situations. So it's very cool to just have the tavern role play, but your actor wants more. So talking to kings, talking to plants, talking to animals. If you don't have a druid, give them an amulet of speak with animals. Nothing wrong with that. Just invent new and more interesting role play encounters. Your actor will love it. They'll do cool things with it. It'll be awesome. That's the actor in a nutshell. Any questions? We all good? Any comments? Okay. Cool. There we go. Explorer's next. Okay. This is probably the rarest archetype I've found. I think I have maybe one explorer across all of my campaigns ever. I didn't realize it at the time, and he dropped. But explorers, they love new stuff, okay? It's not just new places, new settings, anything new, okay? New characters, new magic items, new stuff, okay? And just keep the stuff coming is the main thing with the explorer. Feel free to take screenshots of this. I'm not reading verbatim. I'm just kind of going.
I'll also link the slides on
Discord. Yeah, we can link the slides up. You guys can look at those whenever you want. You gotta take notes if you want. Okay. The main thing is they're explorers. They're interested in your setting. They want fantasy or sci-fi or whatever you're representing to them, okay? Show them that stuff, okay? Like, send them mundane stuff to tide them over, but send them cool, unique things. Okay, floating castles are a great example. Volcanoes, Mount Doom, cool magical items, the more utilitarian. That they're like, okay, interesting. This has a story behind it. I'm going to explore this story. I'm going to explore the guy who made this. I'm going to go to a place and find a thing that relates to a thing that I've already found. Okay, they love exploring your world. It's rich to them. Even if it's awful, it's an awful world, which is the case for my world most of the time. Yeah, all this stuff. Give their discoveries impact. Do interesting things. Maybe it ties into your main plot. Maybe it goes somewhere they're not expecting. You know, having this thing they found belong to somebody that was going to come back for it. I've had that happen. Character tie-in. Stuff like that. Just make it feel impactful. Do anything to make the places and things you find interesting. Okay? Okay, the instigator. Let's talk about Isaac. Okay. They do stuff. That's them in a nutshell. Okay? Most players start out with instigator as their profile. Okay? So if you peg them as instigator first session, you're probably wrong, or they'll keep that for a little while and start adapting into other things so they find out there's more to D&D than just doing stuff. Okay? So they do anything. I had a player, their first session, see the fountain in the middle of the town, get in it, and electrify themselves. Okay? There's no reason for them to do that. I think they got arrested later. It was insane. In a sci-fi setting I had a very young player, actually. They were in like a general store, and she ran in and she stole a chicken. Like a massive, like genetically altered super chicken, okay? And she got halfway to the bus and realized it wasn't cooked after she had stolen it, and ran back in and used like the general store microwave. And then she took it again and ran back out. In that same session, another guy stole a shotgun from the store. They're all new players. Actually, if that one wasn't. Another guy bought, I believe, something like 100 pounds of ramen and stuffed it into his backpack somehow, and then ran. One of them, at least one of them paid, I think. It was a wacky session. Basically, instigators, they do stuff, they make things interesting. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't feel intimidated by instigators. We talk about that later, saying yes. Instigators are interesting to have around. I've learned that more and more with Isaac. Oftentimes it enriches the story, okay? There's another quote by Gary Gygax, is not up there, but essentially it goes along something like, I mentioned this to you in the car, Isaac. If the DM is directing it, you are not playing a game, okay? Agency matters. Doing the thing you want to do matters as a player. Let them do their thing. And instigators do their thing all the time, okay? So let's talk recommendations. So I talk about saying yes later, but say yes to them, okay? Whatever they want to do, say yes, because eventually they'll learn to role play their character better, or they'll figure out what it is they're trying to do, and then it'll all kind of click. I mean, you can say no to the most absolutely insane requests that maybe kill the entire party instantly, or, you know, they're like very intentionally trying to derail everything you have sought to build for the last 82 years. But, you know, just let them do their thing for the most part. Next is let them have consequences. Don't let them electrify themselves in the fountain and have all of the NPCs look at them and just be dumb idiots that just look the other way, okay? Make everything react to what they're doing. They want to feel like their actions have meaning, okay? So, you know, Isaac's thing, we just let it go. And we're having fun. Next session is probably sometime after I get back to Indiana. He really enjoyed it. He enjoyed the entire session. They went to the Feywild. They didn't expect to go to the Feywild. They had to go to the Feywild to get away from all the guards that were chasing them because of what Isaac did. And now they're somewhere cool. So, I mean, you know, you just roll with it. Let it have reactions, both good and bad. You know, it's bad most of the time, sure, but sometimes it just works somehow, and everybody's like, what in the world just happened? And it just worked. So, like, a rogue going in and just sneak attacking the big bad is a great example. It's like, you just hit him? Yeah, I just stab him. Okay, roll, crit, okay, he's dead. What? Okay, well, that happened. Let me roll up a new big bad. He had 52 hit points, whatever. Okay, so yeah, let it do things, and then let the party sort it out. You don't have to the party will figure it out half the time, okay? There's another role, problem solver. You saw it up there. The problem solver's whole thing is fixing these issues. They get off on just like understanding what it is they need to do and then doing it. It's super fun to them. It's like solving a puzzle. These are the mathematicians. These are the engineers. Probably most of you people. Yeah, and I already talked about new players having instigator tendencies. Let them do their thing, bottom line, okay? Don't railroad them. The fighter, very simplistic. They fight. Give them fights. They like blood. They like carnage. So their main thing is they're not like, these aren't power gamers necessarily. So Caleb, he just kind of rolls and he lets it happen, but he really enjoys the fights for some reason. It's not like he's super invested in his build necessarily. It's just, you know, he's super into the action. So they're more into the drama of the fight and the coolness factor and the epicness. We talk about the optimizer later, which is basically the power gamer. Recommendations of them, give them the fights. I hate fights. I don't like making encounters. Try to satisfy them sometimes, even if you don't want to, okay? Like, just give them something, just one bandit, and have that bandit challenge them to a duel so they feel obligated. You know, make the bandit insane or whatever, but, you know, just do something. Unique encounters, memorable encounters are great. Describe the combat. Okay, that's one for me, because I don't like making the combat, but I love narrating. So, you know, make the things they do impactful, fun. If they hit somebody, describe how they hit them. Did the armor crunch? Did it go through the armor? Did it bounce off? Is it bleeding? Can it bleed? You know, describe if is it sad? Is it angry? Is it you know, totally immune? Is it immune to fear? You know, is it totally impassive? If they're a spellcaster, make their spell clever, make it powerful. I have a pyromancer named Dante who's a bit of an optimizer. He likes to see the fireball kill everything, and I describe it. You know, their hair burns off first, and then you see their skeletons briefly before they incinerate into dust because there's a max damage fireball, and it does like 16 times their health. So yeah, describe all that stuff. you know, and you can just tailor it to the person. You know, a lot of times when you talk to them, you can figure out what they find fun about their combat. So like, you know, there's a fantasy to each character. Like for an archer, it's hitting that bolt, that 1 in a million shot, you know, hitting a dragon's eye from like a mile out and somehow making it work, and you just see it, you just see this red dot plummet through the sky in the distance, and then you hear like a delayed sound as the impact finally reaches your ears. They love that stuff, okay? Give them memorable battles. So road battles are cool, forest battles are cool, try to think bigger. Any gimmick will do, any gimmick. I just made up like fauna one time. I had like explosive mushrooms. Okay, I'm like, yeah, I made up like a parasite mushroom that like came after somebody one time, and like I don't know, mushrooms are cool. This is a jungle, so you know, just make it up on the spot. Anything cool, any trope will do. It doesn't have to be original necessarily. Burning barns work. You guys are almost in an encounter. If you've gone outside that barn that one night, vampiric bats would have come after you, and you would have gotten your blood sucked out. That's fun times. Avoid the darkness. Rickety Bridge is a classic one, okay? They have to mind their footing, they have to roll acrobatics checks, giving some characters to shine. There's moments to shove people off the bridge. Time for the monks to shine, they can jump across the bridge, planks that are missing. If there's water below, how much fall damage can they take? Can they survive? Can they recover? Feather fall, fly, all that stuff. Anything. Epic monsters are iconic, okay? Don't shy away from throwing the monster you want into the fight. Okay, this could be anything. There are tables in the Dungeon Master's Manual, which again I recommend. It's great. That like just stuff for scaling down stuff. Okay, I think one session I actually got to play this session. There was a young dragon in the first session, just because he wanted to show off a dragon. I'm like, oh, this is so sick. I've never fought a dragon before. It had like 30 health. I think it had literally just hatched. We killed a baby. It was awful, but it wanted to kill us, and it was a memorable fight. And we can say the first monster we killed in that campaign was a dragon. And you know, it's okay if they fail. They're there for the drama. They're there for the experience. It's okay if they fail. It's awesome if they win, but it's okay if they fail because it's more memorable. They have a fun experience, especially if you follow these other rules. Okay, that's the fighter. It's pretty simple. Give them cool stuff. Okay. Okay, the OP atomizer. Okay. Yeah, that's like a rendering of a max damage fireball. So yeah, this is the power gamer. Okay. No beating around the bush. They do everything they can to be powerful. Okay. They eke everything out of each of their stats. They have builds. These are the people. I mean, so a lot of advanced players have a bit of optimizer in them because they just want to, you know, there's more to the game in their character sheets that they want to explore. They want to do cooler things. They want to find combos, that kind of thing. Nothing wrong with that. There's stigma around being a power gamer, but there's nothing wrong with it. Everybody likes to feel powerful. Everybody enjoys the power fantasy. It's great to feel powerful. And if you don't feel powerful in a fantasy game, there's something wrong, okay? I opt for heroic rolls a lot of times now. Reroll ones. Be as generous as possible. Let your characters feel powerful, okay? Even, yeah.
I do want to point out that in certain settings, feeling overpowered could take away from it.
Absolutely.
For example, like Curse of Strahd.
Sure. Yeah. But you know, give this player the time to shine in comparison to whatever the setting is, right? So you know, Curse of Strahd. You know, maybe give them a slightly powerful magical item kind of early. You know, you don't want anything game breaking, but you know, let the pacing of the game continue. Don't let it break the game. And you can always scale stuff up. I talk about that. Okay, let's talk about Renovation. Okay, give them the power they so desperately crave. Just do it, okay? You're the DM. You can make things as crazy as you want to. Nothing wrong with that. Tell them you scale the encounters. Okay, pre-made modules, I hate the encounters in the pre-made modules because they force you to just run these encounters that are geared towards a very specific level. That's not fun, okay? It's cool to make them a little easier because they're over-leveled, but don't make them brain dead. That's not fun. They go in and just murder everything the first turn. You made this encounter for no reason? What? So, you know, make the stuff more powerful, but give them power, okay? And be creative with the power, okay? Stat buffs are a thing. You can do that. That works fine. They like that. They love stats. But, you know, be creative. I say new followers. You You know, give them a person that is basically an extension of themselves. You know, use whatever rules you want. But basically just be like, okay, this person follows you. They do whatever you want. You can combo with them. You know, maybe they have opportunity attacks. Maybe they give you advantage when they hit something. You know, cool stuff like that. Synergize with their build. Followers are a fun way to go. A very fun way to go. Special spells. This was like one of the very first things I did. I'm like, okay, Dante, my pyromancer. Okay, he's an optimizer, fighter, I think actor. It's hard to tell with him. He changes per day. But yeah, so I gave him like a cool spell pretty early on. It was essentially like a moving, like almost like a weird elemental sphere. It was kind of like what is it? I don't know. Some of you rules lawyers can tell me.
Flaming sphere?
Yeah, it was like a modified flaming sphere. Yeah. And it was just it could stick to walls. It could move. It was like a molten sphere that could just travel everywhere. It would stick to people and slowly burn them, kind of like a heat metal. Cool stuff. Okay. Anything like that. Make it creative. Make it cool. But you know, if it comes down to stat buffs, do that. Give them power. Okay. You can compensate that.
One thing somebody from Discord says, there's a difference between being powerful versus being overpowered.
Yes, absolutely. And they're never overpowered unless you let it be. And I don't recommend. The main thing with there's another thing about the optimizer. We're a little ahead of ourselves, but don't. They can be a little more powerful than everybody else, but it stinks to be useless. Okay, it's really bad. Okay, I like to be a little useless. I like to have a very specific niche where I'm useful as a player, but it's very good to kind of have everybody have their niche, and they could be very good at specific kinds of combat or being powerful. Give their item specific intention when you make it. If you give them an item, that kind of thing. But give it when you make the optimizer more powerful, you also need to kind of throw in a little something for everybody else, just to keep everybody tided over. Okay, problem solver. Okay, they fixed things. Yeah, they figured out Game of Thrones before it was even written. Those are those guys. They plan crazy stuff. They love anything to problem solve. All problem solvers kind of have their preference. I have a little problem solver in me. I love role play type puzzles to fix. How do I get this person to tell me something? How do I basically unravel this political agenda? I have some problem solvers that are like literary geniuses. They like riddles. There's maybe a couple problem solvers in Where Falls. One time I gave them a riddle, and it was really fun because it wasn't like a solve this riddle to continue. It was like, this is a riddle, and if you fix the riddle or you solve the riddle, then there's optional content. There's like a magic item on the other side, right? Like behind a door. And so they're like, okay, I don't think this is something we need to do right now, but we can think about this. And it was just a problem they're thinking about all the time. And it was great for interactivity, even off session. So they were like in the chat all the time talking about this riddle. And then one of the days, one of our problem solvers just started looking at the map, and they realized it was like a very specific place that was super obvious. Nobody looked at the map, and he felt like a genius. But yeah, make it as difficult or as hard as you think they'll do, but make it so, the problem, if it's super hard, don't make it super vital, Don't want Curse of Strahd, the super magical artifacts that let you fight Strahd behind something that they're likely to never get unless they have 200 IQ and 20 hours to blow. Okay? So, the main thing is, much like the Instigator, let their problem-solving ability have meaning, okay? So if they don't solve the riddle, let the riddle go unsolved, basically is what I'm saying. Let that problem be nagging at them because they love thinking about it. They love doing things about it. They love trying to, the next stage, to fix the problem. And you can give them other problems that are more solvable in the meantime. But let them fail, but also let them succeed. Give them parameters, okay? I absolutely fudge as a DM because I care about my players' fun. I think it's silly to have predetermined everything beforehand and then just let the session be unfun for the rest of the night, okay? Predetermined parameters specifically for the problems that you want the problem solver, because they hate feeling cheated. They feel like you just altered the formula fundamentally, and you did. And that breaks their little brains, and they hate it, and it's unfair, and it is, okay? And you give them unique stuff, like I said, puzzles. Give them political agendas to unravel, anything, secrets. Vecna is I talk about how Matt Mercer stole my entire campaign, and he did. But Vecna is all about secrets and agendas and weird enigmatic motives. And my characters love trying to unravel that. Okay? So, travel. Travel's a big one. Okay, so the easiest way to instantly stimulate a problem solver is make getting A to B more than, okay, you're there. There's a place for that. But it can be a couple lines long. It can still be a problem. Okay. One of the things about the map I showed you is that oftentimes the roads are divided by things that are dangerous inherently. So they have that classic dichotomy of slow but sure. You know, the roads are kind of safe, or fast but risky. Okay. And they can decide that. Oftentimes I have little time limits in place that are like, if you get here, this is better, or you know, maybe the world is ending. You never know. So. You know, get there, make the travel interesting. You can do this in any number of ways. There are far better sources than me to talk about this. But yeah, just make everything a problem to be solved, and they'll love it. The storyteller, one of the things I am, very simple again, though much more, it's easy to say this stuff, but it's much harder in practice to craft a story. But they like the story. They like everybody's story. They like your story. They like my story. They like the story everybody makes together, told by you and them, okay? They like the story of NPCs they encounter. They like the stories of items they find. They're kind of like the explorer in that way. They love the lore. They love telling, they love the cooperative storytelling element. When you have a storyteller, you are not the primary storyteller if you're the DM. And I talk about that here in a second. Recommendations. I recommend listening to them, okay? This might sound weird maybe to you, but if you have a story in mind, listen to what they think the story is, consider it, and make amends to the story you have. Okay, nothing wrong with altering the story to make it more interesting to the storytellers. So I have a storyteller in Winter Falls, and basically one session, like she's super involved. She's making me like docs to read of like letters she's sending to people. She made like an entire like fountain setting scene where she's like, oh yeah, I want to go here and I want to talk to this person and it's going to be so-so and we're going to talk like this. Like, well, you know, you only have so much agency in this situation, but I can kind of set that up for you. So basically, they're wonderful because they take so much work off your back. Just listen to them. You know, that classic scene where like you listen to the players talk about what they think is going to happen, and then you just do that, or you take that and twist it. Nothing wrong with that. You know, the game doesn't have to be set, and you can tell that up front with expectations. So yeah, and another thing, they have a very unique perspective. Okay, they have a storytelling perspective that you do not have because they know things. Or rather, you know things they don't know, and they know things that they think they know. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Basically, they have a grounded perspective. Okay, they're a player, storyteller. So they think that the story is going one direction. Okay, subversion is a very powerful thing. They either hate it or they love it. So consider that carefully when they talk about their opinions on the story so far, because they love talking about the story. Most of them do, at least the talkative ones. But yeah, use the storytellers. They're fantastic tools. You're kind of fun. Okay, we're moving on from the players. That was all the roles. If you want to see that again, we can bring it up again. So you're kind of fun. Okay. So that was about maximizing fun for the players. All of this is kind of that, but you are not a second class. Oh, hold on. There we go. You're not a second class player. Okay, that means that you matter. When you get to the table, you're not there to service people. Okay, you kind of are, but what you want to do in this game matters, and your players should respect that. Okay, you should be willing to do things that you find fun specifically for you, and the players should be able to enjoy that as well. Okay, it is important that you have fun. If you do not have fun, there are problems. Okay, if you are not having fun, your players are probably not having fun. Okay, you're going to be dead at the table. I was like this for a while. That AD&D session I mentioned basically revitalized my love of fun for the game. Okay, I was kind of like doing it as like an obligation. Like, yeah, this has been going forever. Everybody's counting on me to DM. They're having so much fun, and the sessions really dragged. I was just kind of filling a quota. I was like, yeah, let's do 2 hours and we'll be done. everything will be okay, and my players were, yeah, this is not going anywhere, and a couple people dropped during that period. It was not good. So you must have fun. You must have fun no matter what. Find the fun. If you're not having fun, talk to the players. Find a way to have fun as a DM. Okay? Now that we've talked about you having your fun and prioritizing your fun, okay? And by the way, your fun is oftentimes one of the things I already mentioned. That comes out in a variety of ways. As a DM, instigator. Sometimes you want to pop stuff on the people. Storytelling, you want to tell an overarching story. That's fine. You have total freedom, which is scary for everybody involved. Okay, that classic, DM, the rocks fall, everybody dies. Okay, that's basically the DM nuclear toxic option. Just kill everybody and everything. Okay, the DM can do that, and it's awful. Okay, you have so much freedom. Which is a great thing, but it's a huge responsibility. That means that you have the ability to edge out other people's fun. If they're wanting to do something, you would say, stop that, I'm having my fun, or they're having their fun, okay? It's important to try and compromise. You're absolutely able to indulge, but you're compromising, okay? So basically, consider how much fun you have doing something. Consider what your players have fun doing. Find a thing that is fun for both of you, or all of you, or at least most of you, and then you could have another thing that's fun for those people, the people you didn't get in the first round, okay? Satisfy the fighter, satisfy the storyteller. It doesn't have to be the same session, but get to them, all right? Make a little list of things that you're going to get to, and make sure they have fun. Compromise. And let them ruin your fun, okay? So as a DM, you should be able to live vicariously through your players. If you aren't a player first, I recommend being a player. At some point, find somebody to DM. Don't be a forever DM. Learn what it is to be a player, and then have fun watching your players do their thing, okay? And then when they do something that is directly contrary to what you find fun, just let them, okay? Maybe make it hard, make them roll. If they want to kill a guy, make them roll for it. Nothing wrong with that, that's the game. But, if they do it, let it happen. Enjoy their success. If they do a thing, be happy for them. You are not an adversarial figure. You are not an antagonist. You play the antagonist, but you are not an antagonist. It's a cooperative storytelling game. You are cooperating with the players to tell an awesome story. You should enjoy it when they do something cool. You should be celebrating. I see a lot of impassive, dead-eyed DMs that are just stone cold face. That's very classic AD&D. Don't give anything away. But you should feel free to be expressive, be happy, be awesome. Okay. Delegate the fun. I talked a little bit about this with the storytelling. There's a lot of things I hate about being a DM. Okay, nothing wrong with that. We all have our preferences. I'm those three I mentioned earlier. You can basically, if you have understanding players, and if you don't have understanding players, I recommend finding new players, because there's a lot of players and very few DMs. Delegate the fun. So the fun, the things you don't find fun. Okay, I don't like combat encounters. I find somebody that can run, just make some random combat encounter. I don't tell them what it's for. I might ask them for it months in advance. I could ask for a map and then ask somebody else for monsters. Just keep it fresh, and they'll realize they're in the encounter when they get there. Another classic example of delegating fun is a party treasurer. Okay, I hate keeping track of items. I hate keeping track of magic items. I hate doing all that stuff. I don't keep any kind of notes on what my party has, and sometimes they surprise me. Like, oh yeah, I did give that to you 2 years ago. I had a recent session where I keep mentioning Dante. He's one of my iconic characters. Dante had an entire bag full of stuff that he'd had from 10 years ago. There was the scroll of Firecat. He never found out what it did because it was destroyed, but we knew everything that was destroyed when his backpack got clawed up by a bird, because we had a treasure. So yeah, delegate all that stuff. Don't be afraid to spread the workload. They're here to have fun. You are too. Spread the love. Yes is fun. What time are we at? How long are we supposed to go for?
Just do your thing.
Okay, we're almost done. Yes is fun. Yes is way more fun than no, okay? Players hate hearing no. A lot of times there's no reason to say no. Unless your players are doing something that is directly toxic or confrontational to everybody and you don't allow that, say yes. General rule of thumb, okay? Sometimes you say no and tell them why, okay? There has to be a good reason to say no. Even more fun is yes and. This is a classic ad-libbing, method. So don't just say yes, compliment them. Say, oh yes, and you jump the rail and you also do a somersault, and if you land with a 15 or more in acrobatics, you get, I don't know, like advantage on your next attack. Stuff like that. Make the things they do more impactful. Do things that only you can do to make their thing more cool. Okay? You're the DM, you can make stuff happen. Okay, say yes to consequences. We already mentioned that, but just let stuff happen. Player death is one of the most impactful things ever if done right. Okay? It stinks when everybody gets party wiped, but when one character dies at an impactful time doing something that they should be doing, instant agency for everybody. Like, oh snap, somebody just died. Okay, we need to be invested here. We could revive them. We need to make their sacrifice worth it. And of course the dead person is like, avenge me, do something. Okay, say yes to consequences, any consequences, all consequences. Blow up the world and have like a space campaign, okay? Okay? Twist consequences. Make the consequences fun. They don't have to be unfun just because it's like inherently negative, like character death. Have like a little like character death arc where they have to like go somewhere, do X, Y thing to revive the person. I hate classic revivify. Twist the thing. If the player is dead, make them a ghost and do fun things with that, okay? If you have like a permanent player death system until they're revived, I have that. Or, just let them roll another character until they get revived. Temporary character, help them find their resurrection method. Stuff like that. Twist everything, make it fun. Fun is the priority, that's what we're here for, okay? Don't be afraid, the force is with you. Okay, when they do something, the force is agency, okay? I call player agency the force because the force is the most powerful thing in D&D. If you have player agency, if they're on board, you can do anything and they'll love it, okay? The first session I DM for these two, they walked into a gnomish workshop, okay? They were trying to pass themselves off as a local lord, okay? That failed miserably. The gnomes instantly picked them out, like Isaac was a changeling. This disguise was pathetic. And they're like, oh no, you're not a lord. And they killed everything there. Okay? And that campaign didn't continue for too much longer, but I had bounties on you guys. The law was after you. There was interesting consequences incoming. Then they got killed by wolves, and that didn't happen. But, those consequences. They got revived as revenants, and they're outlaw revenant being bounty hunted, serving like an archfey or something. Yeah, that's whack.
Can I interject before you move on?
Sure thing.
That moment will stick with us forever. We could not have seen that coming, but I will be telling my D&D grandkids about this.
Murdering gnomes is one of my proudest achievements.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, that's probably what set me on the instigator trail.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, if you can get player agency, and player agency can be earned a variety of ways, find ways to earn agency. Most of the time, if they come up with an idea, they have agency, okay? If they want to do something, you say yes, you can go there. Other players agree, they're all on board, you have agency. Anything you do from then on is awesome to them, okay? Because they chose this. They're playing the game. They're doing neat things. And then include all the other elements in that, and you have a fantastic campaign. Okay, you have time, okay? This goes along with the idea of dealing with consequences. Most D&D groups meet once a week, generously, okay? I have D&D groups that meet like maybe once a month, if that. Sometimes far less time. But basically, whatever happens, comfort yourself with the fact that you have several 24-hour periods to maybe help deal with the thing that is happening, okay? And if they have agency, your players should be understanding of what you have to deal with. If you have to rig up an entirely new world map and it's horribly simplistic and rudimentary when they get to you next session, they know why. They just derailed everything you've strived for. But they have agency, so they're cool with it. They're like, oh yeah, I understand. That's fine. As long as we're doing our thing, that's awesome. You have time. Okay? Finally, know when to say no. I talked about this earlier. Basically, anytime they're doing something that is toxic is my main rule. Okay, if there is PvP, I will sometimes say no. If it's for role-playing reasons, everybody's cool with it. Sometimes I'll say yes. But main reason is state your reason and know when to say no and establish what you're not cool with and expectations. Okay, say this is not cool. Don't do this in the campaign. Okay, that varies from group to group. Some people are cool with everything. Nothing wrong with that as long as you're having fun. Okay, straight to the fun. Big airship. You know what I'm talking about. No bulletins here, that's fine. D&D is a tailored experience, okay? You should be able to alter and determine when they have fun and immediately deliver it to them, okay? You know, sometimes it's a bit more gradual than that, but they should always sort of be going to the fun. And if it's waning, you know, maybe they're taking too long on the road. They're obviously the player agency, the commitment isn't quite there. Just say, okay, you're there. Like, what? Yeah, you're there now. The fun is about to begin. Like, oh, we're here. Yeah, but you know, you took like 28 cold damage, but you know, you're here now. So, you know, straight to the fun. It's a tailored experience. You determine when they have fun. You can do it instantly. Nothing wrong with that. It might cheapen the experience. Some more hardcore settings determine what kind of fun you can deliver immediately. I have like a little hot list of immediate fun, like endorphin rushes I can just deploy on standby. But you know, figure that out. That's something to consider. And a lot of modules, I recommend heavily modifying your modules. A lot of modules have very dull moments with very active fun moments. You know, just like if there is a module hook where they go somewhere and do something you know the party isn't going to like, just cut that out. You know, just hack that entire part out and use it somewhere else that will be useful. Okay? Don't beat around the bush. Just do it. Okay? Again, if it looks like they're not having fun, just make stuff happen. Okay? Getting to the fun. Okay? So again, travel is a big one. Do interesting things when you travel. I love random generated rolls. They never know what they're going to find. I have one event you're welcome to steal where at night, if there's a person on watch and it's a clear night, they roll a D100. Okay? They see a shooting star. If they roll a 100, they get to make a wish. Yes, the wish spell. Okay? They don't know it's a wish spell. They might suspect something, but they don't know for sure. Okay? But if they get a 100, that could break the game. That's the kind of stuff they should be encountering for fun. Okay? Just do crazy stuff like that. All right? Random encounters are a good one. I don't like just like super random, like just mob encounters. Make there some narrative, something interesting happening there. And also don't drag them down with that stuff. The old adage is 1 random encounter per travel, I think, something like that, or travel day, whatever. You can adjust that as needed based on your campaign setting, how much distance you're traveling. But yeah, or at least effortless. Yeah, get into the fun effortless. Okay? Final point. Remember the fun. Okay, bottom line, keep it fun. No matter what, keep it fun. If you're not having fun, there's something wrong. You need to address that immediately. Okay, talk to your players, do anything. Remember, it's a game. Okay, you're here to have fun. It is a game at its core. A lot of people take this game very seriously, especially at the high levels you've been playing for years. Some people get impatient with new players, you know, but they're here to have fun. It's a game. We're all on board with this, or we should be. We settle that in expectations. Even if you fail, you're with friends. If the party gets wiped, you should be settling just beforehand that incompatible players, that everybody is friends, everybody likes each other, there's a good party dynamic. You should be on good name basis with these people. You're friends. By Gary Gygax, games give you a chance to excel, and if you're playing in good company, you don't even mind if you lose because you had the enjoyment of the company during the course of the game. Rest in peace, Gygax, what a man. So yeah, that's essentially all I got. We're gonna do Q&A. This creepy tavern guy is inviting me to tell me questions. Yeah, ask me whatever, hopefully D&D. Anybody got anything? Yeah.
Less so a question, more so a comment that I had.
Sure thing, man.
You mentioned that in that one campaign where you have a lot of stuff lined up and they ended up getting killed by
Yes.
One of the things that popped in my head is that a TPK doesn't necessarily need to be the end of the game.
Absolutely, that's a good point.
Because one thing that popped in my head is you could have just continued the game in the afterlife.
Yeah, for sure. That's classic, man. You know, sometimes players are just ready to move on when they TPK. They're like, I want to roll something else. I'm kind of tired of this setting. It's a great moment to just consider what's happened so far. Are we having the maximum amount of fun we could be having? But yeah, absolutely. You could just go on. You got something?
Another comment, and this is shamefully stolen from a DM I used to play with.
Dude, no shame. What do you got?
Is that whenever a player would die, because his combats were pretty hard, he liked making hard combats, and I love hard combat as well, so I was fine with it. Whenever a character would die, we would roll a D100, and if it was a 90 plus, we would get revived by something.
Yes, I have something similar. basically I roll something like a d20, and if I roll like a 16 or higher, something revives them. Okay, I usually make it optional because there's some strings attached. Either they're a revenant or some cosmic force is like, hey, you're my pawn now. Do what I want.
Yeah, I was resurrected by Tiamat once.
Yeah, Tiamat, that's fun.
That makes interesting.
That's awesome. Yeah. Speaking of consequences, we recently had a session where like half the party committed to Tiamat. Yeah, like they went to like a cultist underground. Like, yeah, Tiamat's pretty cool, man. Let's do that. So.
It was not me.
Yeah. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, do we want to just do Tiamat stuff now, or do you guys want to roll new characters? And they decided to roll new characters. So their old player characters are now cultists of Tiamat. We'll see where that goes later in the campaign. But yeah, fun times. Anybody else got anything?
So attached to the random table, I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Sure, man.
One thing I did that was a hell of a time, probably not fit for more serious things.
Yeah.
But I let them submit prompts for like what they encounter. Like,
fun. That's a good idea.
One of them was just like chickens, and then it's just simple stuff like, we find a village that's suddenly abandoned, and then our favorite one was my roommate, who's an artist, has a picture of a man with a pumpkin head, and that's all he posted.
Very cool.
And that became a villain.
Man with a pumpkin, that's so sick. I had one session, it was the end of one of the big arcs, so I divide my campaign story arcs for Winter Falls because they're so long. I'm like, okay, this happened way back, and that's arc 1. The conclusion of one of the arcs, I asked my players, each of them individually, what they think the final monster should be. And overwhelmingly, I got Beholder, because that was like the one iconic monster they hadn't fought yet, and they had a fun time. One of them died, they got disintegrated, but it's awesome. Okay, anything else? We good?
I think you did a great job.
Okay. Well, everybody, thanks for coming, man. You have my handle, or you did. Dissolution, I'm on the server. You're on the server. Look me up if you have any questions, comments. I like to play D&D. Sometimes I don't have time. I will DM if I can, especially one-shots. I'm also, I'm being selfish here, but I'm making a sci-fi tabletop game called X13. If you ever played XCOM, kind of like that, but tabletop. Kind of whimsy, weird, high-stakes shooter where if you get hit, you're wounded and you're bleeding out and people are trying to save you, that kind of thing. If you're interested in that kind of thing, let me up. We're about to start playtesting when I get back to Indiana. So, yeah, okay.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah. Okay.